Are you sure we're ready?
I'm sure we're ready.
That's good because I'm already recording.
Because I was going to be positive that you knew that we were still going to transition into a conversation on feet pics.
Well, obviously.
I
Hello,
mean,
hello, everybody.
no, I wasn't done talking. Please don't interrupt me.
We can
Do
go
we
back
think
to feet pics. We just have to say hello. Don't be rude.
you muted me, you bastard? Do you think Jessica Fletcher would sell feet pics?
I didn't mute you. Oh my God, it's moved even more.
Okay.
No
Something
one's
muted me.
listening to this has any idea what I'm talking about. It's moved even more. Now half of the Discord thing, it's back. Half of the Discord thing wasn't in the fucking circle anymore. Oh my, okay, I cannot look at Discord while you speak. Oh, for fuck, that is driving me crazy. Anyway.
For anyone listening in, apparently my picture in Discord, which is just the default one, keeps moving whether or not I'm talking, because it highlights things green when you're talking.
It's just the face. Like, it's always the full red. It's not even like the whole picture moves. It's always the full red background, but the little Discord controller looking face thing is moving all around the fucking circle. Oh my God. Oh my God. And it is so annoying. And I'm so glad we've become so much more professional after such a long break.
All I'm hearing now is I need to change my profile picture to my feet pics. That way I can wiggle them for you.
Oh, this is a Murder, She Wrote podcast, I swear.
Likely. This is a painting podcast, and the value of artwork once someone's dead.
So yes, this is season 1, episode 15. Paint Me a Murder.
And I tried to, but Cake said no.
What did you try to do? Paint a murder?
Yes, I was going to.
I'd happily you paint a murder. I'd make another remote.
Oh, no, I mean, like, paint with murder? Like, blood's really good.
Okay, yeah, that I'm probably against.
And if I remember correctly, there's how many different stops if you're Catholic doing the whole following Jesus on the cross? I could make an artwork like that. You need them to stay still for the structure for the.
Yeah, sadly we're not watching Dexter. We're watching Murder, She Wrote.
Did you know J.B. Fletcher is the Bay Harbor Butcher?
That's interesting. I wonder if they'll ever get to that in the series.
I keep seeing jokes about different people being the Bay Harbor Butcher, and it amuses me, even though I never saw Dexter. This episode starts rather lovely with this poor old guy just criticizing the artwork of this little girl. She's trying to paint her interpretation of a donkey, and he's like, its legs are too short.
Can I just say, so I loved the start. Well, no. It starts first, I believe, with the chiseling away of the urn, right, on the balcony.
Yes.
For the first time. Right? Setting up that there's going to be a murder. As if we didn't know, right? Then it cuts to what has got to be the weirdest setup and bunch of people for a party I think I could possibly imagine, right? So yes,
we cut to the kids, and then we cut to
because he's a
birthday.
famous artist and he is teaching some kids because he's a very nice man, right? The setup that he is a very nice man is labored on thick,
yes,
right? And I think it's because they go against the grain and they kill off the very nice man for the first time ever, right?
Yeah, but something about the company he keeps his friends makes me debate his ability to either be nice or not stupid.
So, I mean, he's clearly a successful artist. He lives on an island, his own personal island. He's got quite a nice looking house. Very young wife.
Second
wife. And then, yeah, the whole... So who's there at the beginning? Because Jessica Fletcher and Lord Ponsonby, or whatever he's called,
so one of the problems is I don't feel confident with how each of these people was like even his friend. It's not really
No,
elaborate about it.
no,
'Cause
I
we
don't
have
understand it. Okay, so one of them is the ex-wife,
right
right? Which again is
who gets
kind of
bitched about
weird.
when
They're
she's not even
still,
in the scene.
yeah, it was kind of weird that they're still friendly, but okay. There's then the guy with the mustache, the playwright,
Yep,
for
Willard
for
Kaufman.
some reason, and then there's a woman who runs a charity.
Yes, and I have no idea. Like, honestly, for the lovely person he's supposed to be, she
Yes,
does seem like someone that might be in his orbit. But why is Willard Kaufman, who seems to just be a judgmental prick, in
yes.
his orbit? And also, why is his ex-wife? Why did that actress choose to have a moniker rather than a name when she went into show business? I mean, she became a model first, but I don't even know how to pronounce Capucine. Capucci?
Yeah, I don't know. Capukine? No, that sounds like some kind of rectal medicine. I
So
don't
probably
know.
that one then.
I don't know. But and what I also don't understand is how they're all friendly with each other because they don't seem to be.
No, they don't. But they don't seem to be.
Because
They
they
don't
seem
actually
to
seem to be
be.
friends. They seem to be his friend and capable of not killing each
Well,
other,
his
even
friends,
though
but
they're
they
all
do
horrible
seem
people.
to know a lot about each other. Like they have been around each other for a while, but at the same time, seem to have no idea what anybody has been doing for the past year.
Because they're long-term friends of his that keep going to events of his from
I
before he had
guess.
an island.
And maybe they just keep being friends with him because he's rich and has a nice island. Like
And throws nice parties
I
that
don't
Eddie
know, but
Izzard
like,
has.
yeah, if those are the people you're scraping up for your, what I'm assuming was meant to be a big birthday. I honestly don't know if it was just a birthday. I honestly don't know.
Yeah, I think it was supposed to be like his 60th or something.
Um,
I don't know. He's nearly dead. He's that old.
yeah,
Yes, that was intentional.
but yeah, I don't understand how those are the group of friends that you invite. I really don't, really don't. But then I guess you can't judge other people's friends. But
Yes, you can. And
um,
furthermore, not only are these the people he invited, but there's not any other better people that he invited. The only good addition is Jessica, and even then, I'm also getting kind of tired. Like, how does he know Jessica? Right? She's a great author. That's fine.
only recently been a great author, and as far as
Exactly.
I can tell, they've been friends for. It comes across that they've
Decades.
been friends for years. Yes.
At least 5 years. And in that meantime, she's been coming up from nothing. Like, she would have been so busy with the news circuit and the book signing
I mean,
tour
she
to
was a teacher. I guess she could have been into the art world. I don't know.
still
I don't know. They don't even seem to be like around the same age. Maybe they're meant to be.
they both look over 60, so
No, but I mean all of them as a group. Like the one who runs the charity,
oh,
I think is clearly meant to be younger, right?
yes.
But everyone else, apart from obviously the second wife, maybe they're meant to be of the same age. Maybe they're meant to have come up as a group. But none of this is explained. They are just friends.
Well, and part of the thing that was throwing me is they do try to, at least to some extent, scapegoat multiple people, or set them up as red herrings through different camera shots and different voice lines. But
Yes.
also, I don't know who these people are in relation to him, and therefore I don't have nearly enough information on a proper motive.
Yes.
Like,
So we'll get to that. But so going back to the painting thing, right? So we're then, as they're doing the painting of the donkey, we're introduced to. I mean, there seems to be a bunch of staff. I'm assuming they're the parents of the kids, um,
yeah,
having a
and I
meal.
don't even think
Oh, and the
I think that was
detective.
actually like a
And the detective. I
orphanage.
forgot about the detective.
I think the parents you see or the adults you see with the kids that leave with the kids, it
Oh,
seems
maybe
slightly more slated towards orphanage or something of that
maybe
nature.
that can make sense. But yeah, there's a lot of sniping and back and forth between the three friends. I think the detective is introduced afterwards.
Afterwards, he comes
Um,
in trying to steal cookies from
comes
the
in trying
kids.
to steal biscuits from the second wife, who seems like a
Now,
very pleasant lady.
I will actually say he does like try it, but it's the good humored of ooh sweets, can I have one? To some
Yes,
person walking around with him.
he,
It's not
he's trying to be friendly, but my problem is I never found the detective friendly. And I don't know if that was on purpose or not. But we'll get into that.
I liked him by the end. I'm not sure if I ever would describe anything he did as friendly, but
well, I think he
never
was definitely
unfriendly.
being set up as the main person you thought did it.
Honestly, I just thought that was poor writing.
I think you were meant to think that possibly Jessica Fletcher has been duped for once. Because I think they were trying, because again, murdering a nice guy has changed one of the golden rules of Murder, She Wrote that we come up with. Until now, the murderee has always been a bastard.
Yes.
This time, he is meant to be a genuinely nice man who was killed for very selfish reasons.
And the person who has a heart attack, who is a bastard,
so
didn't even have the decency to have a heart attack.
That was interesting. And then I think one of the best scenes happens when the kids go away, and he says there's this little girl who is walking and then just stops awkwardly away from the group because she's clearly been told this man's going to interact with you somehow. You stop here. And then there's this really awkward, I can't even think what it is, whether it's like a hug or he just like rubs her hair or if she actually has a line. But there's just this really awkward moment with this little girl who clearly hasn't got a clue what's going on. And it made me smile.
So I feel like we were partially supposed to recognize which one of the little girls that was of the potential artists, because we had the one that was incompetent, the one that he thought was really good, and then everyone else. But I didn't catch which one that was supposed to be. Was that the one that was bad that he kept saying needed more practice, or the one that was good that he saw promise in?
Maybe the good one, because I think the bad one was possibly a guy.
It might have been.
But I don't know. I do
know guys can't be good artists.
But well, he wouldn't.
Have you seen the emote I created?
He wouldn't want guys good artists because that'd be competition for him. But I don't know. It just felt so awkward, right? And this is a TV show where you can do takes. You can like do it again if it feels really bad, and that's the one they went for.
On over this. When they have kids on set, they are fucking clueless on how to utilize them without it coming off as just. It's not even robotically weird. It's just
no, and it's just so weird because there's like, I don't know, 5 minutes of this kind of setup with the friend sniping and this kids thing, and it basically means nothing.
It's just set up for him being
just setting up that he's a nice guy. Yeah. And they really, really do put it on thick, right?
And they do, but how can so you've heard the phrase, the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Yes.
And I think that phrase is only true if you're willing to acknowledge that it's good intentions that the person has put zero effort into actually understanding the total consequences of. It's when he's giving his birthday speech to everyone who... Are you stupid? Do you not see how disconnected from them you are? You're a good guy, but you're dumb. And blind.
Dumb? I don't know, maybe selfish? Like I don't know, but the whole friendship thing of all of them just felt really, really awkward.
It's not even that any of the people were like super bad. It's just this doesn't work. There's no chemistry. There's no meat.
No, it felt more like sometimes when you join a new office and they do like a kind of meet and greet kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right? It felt like that. It felt like people awkwardly chatting to each other. Right? But these are people who have come to celebrate if I was celebrating a birthday and it was people like that who turned up at my birthday, I'd be disappointed.
Yeah. I'd be disappointed if you showed up too.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, I didn't get it. And again, I don't know if that was because they were trying to suggest that everybody had a motive to murder this guy. And they were trying to keep it open-ended.
It also feels like they're not genuine friends either, with how much they
No.
discuss whether or not one of them has a painting of his.
Yeah, and the fact that seems to be important
Like, the only reason I'm
somehow.
friends with you is because you put one of my artworks as your emote on Twitch.
I'm
Transactional.
glad I did it.
But those kind of transactional bastards are not the people you want at your party.
No. But so that starts, and then obviously they've already chiseled the urn. So we're already kind of suspecting that somebody's going to try and push an urn on him, right? Or whoever they're going to try and murder. We're not sure who they're going to try and murder at this point.
Do we see when they're chiseling it? Is it when it's chiseled that the cigarette and matches are down, or is it during the push?
I believe when they're chiseling, you see smoking. I don't know about the matches.
Why is the attempted murderer so profoundly incompetent?
I have a theory.
They leave cigarettes. They leave the matches.
Okay.
It's obviously been chiseled free because of all the debris just left up here on a stone balcony.
So this to me is because, I mean, they spend, I think he's not murdered until around the 25-minute mark. Right.
We do have a murder mystery before then, though, because of the attempted
a little bit of murder mystery. So during the evening, for some reason, we're shown only once that apparently every evening he walks around his veranda strumming his guitar. As you do, nightly ritual. And that's setting up the urn. The urn is pushed. It misses him because the second wife is calling him in for a drink, I think.
It happens roughly 10 minutes in, just after the birthday announcement. They only establish that he does the nightly guitaring after the attempted murder, and it doesn't honestly seem super clear. I didn't feel convinced that it was skimming through it, he is smoking before pushing the large concrete vase with flowers down.
We have forgotten one person we're introduced to, which is the sculptor who's living in a shed down the bottom of the garden.
Are we already introduced to them?
Yeah, because she's gone and seen the cheesy face for the birthday.
Okay, was that not the supposed sculpting of Mr. Rich Painter?
Yes.
To me, they slayed it as a really good sculpting.
Yeah.
I thought it was horrifying.
I thought it was Walt Disney. But
I knew it was supposed to be the guy.
I knew it was supposed
but I see what you mean.
But yes, let's just say I would not want that at the end of my bed. Right? That I would not have a good night's sleep ever again. And then I think it's also indicated at that point that the sculptor fancies the second wife. I don't know if they're trying to put on that maybe it's happened before. And she's putting a stop to it, or if this is the first time and she puts a stop to it. But in either case, she puts a stop to it. Because again, I think you're meant to feel that she is actually a good person who hasn't married this person for his wealth.
Right. He treats her well, but she also does care deeply about him.
Yes. Yeah.
It isn't the first time she knows that the sculptor is in love with her, at a minimum. Even if this is the first time he's tried to kiss her.
Yeah.
She know it's very clear from the scene that she knew that he's deeply in love with her. Though I did think the way they discuss, or that the sculptor discusses, not loving the artwork but just the admiration, that was really heavy-handed.
A lot of this episode was heavy-handed, but in many ways I'm glad, because like I said, I think they tried a few things for this episode, even if they didn't work. And I'm glad that they are still trying to find their rhythm.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Because I still don't think they found the secret formula that makes every episode insanely watchable. And I'm
at least makes most episodes quite watchable.
I'm kind of glad they're still kind of toying around with it. Oh, and the other person, of course, is the son. I forgot about the son.
Yeah.
I forgot about the son.
And the son on the phone trying to talk to his beloved.
Yes, his beloved. You're definitely given that the son is a little bit dodgy. They have a very awkward meal and birthday toast. Sorry, that's not the birthday, because the birthday will be the day after, because Jessica Fletcher hasn't arrived yet.
That's right. During the scene of the attempted murder, of the pushing the vase down on him,
Yes.
what caught my mind was seeing as it was, you had enough of suspension of it going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And my mind started to go through how gruesome of a death that was going to be and how bloody and messy. And were they really going to go that far? And I'm realizing now they probably would have just done a him knocked out kind of look.
Yes, I
Like
think
it was
so.
what, 170-pound concrete vase that would be being shoved.
I do like the fact that when Jessica Fletcher and the detective are talking about it, they do metric and imperial.
That did. I appreciate it.
That made me laugh, especially when it was two English people. I know Jessica Fletcher's been in America for years, but it kind of made me laugh.
Look, there's freedom units and there's wrong units.
But so what I didn't like, and maybe so with the setup, right? They show the match in the left hand. They show the cigarette. They show the smoking, right? I was so convinced that when Jessica Fletcher later on goes up and finds the cigarettes and the matches, that this was meant to be a red herring, right? Because to me, no murderer or attempted murderer would be that fucking stupid.
Right.
Right? So it got me to wonder, and I don't know if again, I'm putting more thought into this than they did, right? When he pushed the urn, did he miss on purpose? Because it is established through the episode that he probably did not want to murder this guy.
What gives you that impression?
Because he was paid to do it by the person who actually murders the guy in the end. It was under his
both
orders.
Of them were going to make. Yes, but I thought both of them were going to make out like bandits because of his death.
No, because
I thought both of them had a vested interest.
No, because this guy doesn't actually own any of his paintings. He's been buying them for the other guy.
But in his own name, which would give him some
not in his own name, because it's later established that he's already got that painting hanging up in his gallery. He's already got it.
Okay.
The guy who murdered. So this guy is doing it under orders or for money. Right? But just money paid to him by the other guy. So I was left wondering.
If he doesn't actually want to kill him, then why is he all the stupider for leaving so much evidence?
Well, this is when I started to think that I was thinking too much about it, which is, did he leave the evidence as part of an attempted murder because the other guy clearly knew he was going to turn up later, could not be responsible for the first attempt, and is not left-handed? So if the left-handed guy leaves all this clear evidence, fails to murder him, has clearly got in mind that he's going to leave the island by faking a heart attack, spoilers, because he has to take that thing with him.
Right. Yeah. Actually, you're right. It has to have been that he never planned it in the first place.
Was this part of the plan? Was this part of the plan?
His plan or the total plan?
The total plan. Was part of the total plan to have a murder that an attempted murder committed by a left-handed person, so that when the actual murder happens, you're going to put the two together, because why would two separate people try and kill the same guy? It doesn't make a lot of sense. And then the guy who does the murder, I think he might be called John, I honestly can't remember. The guy who actually does the murder has an ironclad alibi because he's been in a helicopter with Jessica Fletcher herself and has been spending time in the airport with Jessica Fletcher herself during the time of the initial attempted murder.
Even that's weak, though, considering the motive. The motive is money. The reason the person has a motive for money differs based on our different people.
Yes.
But the underlying thing is the motive is, if you have art of his,
yes, there's
money in him being dead.
Yes.
So I think it is strong to say, hey, the attempted murderer isn't even on the island, so that hasn't. But that still doesn't. There's still plenty of motive. There's abundant motive for everyone.
No, there's motive, but if part of your plan is to set up that it's a left-handed murderer, right? Which again, you could fake, right? But
Well,
if part of
and
the plan is to set up that the initial murder was done by a left-handed person, right, at a time when the actual murderer wasn't on the island, and anyone investigating this is going to put the attempted murder and the murder together as somebody trying again, right? That is a logical step if you're trying to come up with this plan, right? But again, I think I'm putting too much thought into it.
well, counterpoint. What if your second murder? Let's say the attempted murder and the murderer are
Yes.
completely separate.
Yes.
If you're the new murderer and the previous attempted murderer is now off the island,
Yes.
now you see the perfect opportunity to commit the murder yourself for your own financial gain
Yes.
and have everyone still think it was the other dude. But also, why do we take? It is absolute fact that because the matches were pulled from one side of the match, it must be the left-handed person.
Yes. This is the thing. They set up so much that it's a left-handed person. And Jessica Fletcher finds this evidence so easily, right? And Murder, She Wrote has been a lot cleverer in the past.
Yes, well, and so easily, and so, like, I know she's Jessica Fletcher, she knows everything, but that's not strong enough. Even if it is normally from a left-handed person, that's only one piece of a very weak story.
And if you are friends with these people, right, you're going to know that there's only one left-handed person on the island.
Yes.
So, of course, you're going to set it up that it was probably a left-handed person who did it. Right? But then...
Or if he's left-handed, he would set it up to be a right-handed person. Because
or he wouldn't be stupid enough to leave matches and cigarettes at the fucking crime scene.
And I feel like we're late enough in that he bothers to glove his hands so that he doesn't leave fingerprints.
Yes.
But he still puts his mouth on the cigarette. I think we're late enough in that DNA testing could theoretically be done on that.
You could probably get some DNA when the police finally get involved, yeah.
And it's a cigarette butt. Put it out and take it with you, you colossal dumbass.
Or just don't smoke while you're waiting to murder a guy.
I think we're led to believe that that's not really an option, though.
Well, of course
these people are too self-important to not
but again,
smoke welcome
it is established that he's walking along playing the guitar. Not really established as far as the show is concerned at this point, but it is established that this walking with the guitar is a nightly routine, right?
And which would give him time, which would give the attempted murderer time to go up there, enjoy a cigarette before he's going to come out for the nightly guitar.
Precisely.
Put out the cigarette, put out the matches, put them in your pocket where there's no
evidence. It gives him plenty of time. The window that he has to be there is short enough that he does not have to smoke then and there.
Yeah.
Right? If it had been established that he was just waiting for a perfect opportunity for him to come out, he rarely comes out of that door, or it's all different times or whatever, then kind of the cigarettes can start to make sense. But again, Murder, She Wrote is normally cleverer than this. So to have, but then I guess we're meant to think he is not good at murder because he fails to do a murder.
I still am not convinced. I'm still not convinced that you're right, essentially. He wouldn't have been able to hear and dodge something that big, that close, that quick, at least to me. Or at least I'm not giving indication because the wife doesn't really do.
I honestly think he would. I know they've already chiseled it, right? But that is still a big fucking thing to push, right? The noise that it would make as you're pushing it would be obscene. You would be looking up and seeing that thing and getting out of the way before it's ever hit you. It is not established in any way that this guy is hard of hearing. Okay, he is strumming a guitar. I guess you could argue that the guitar was loud.
Not nearly loud enough for a concrete. Because this is a concrete balcony with concrete vases on top of concrete pillars that they chisel free.
That they've chiseled.
It may not have been one piece initially of concrete, but it's still concrete pushed against concrete.
Yes.
Again, over 100 pounds of concrete you're trying to shove off of a.
Yes, and you're not going to shove that straight off. You're going to be walking that off until it falls.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You're going to make a lot of noise even though it's already chiseled. Right? So there's a lot about this. And yeah, I think I gave too much thought to this initial murder and that it was meant to be part of the clever plan. Right? Or that this guy really doesn't want to murder the guy, but is afraid of the guy who's employing him, so has to do a reasonable attempt at it, but he can then run away afterwards.
We are left
Right.
with the final option, right?
Okay.
Our dead person, or our main artist, has been
Yes.
creating art for years.
Yes.
He's wonderful. He's magnificent. He's
Yes.
an artist of all time for decades of his life, obviously.
Yes.
And most of his friends are incompetent.
Yes.
They've done one good thing and nothing more from there. His
Yes.
ex-wife, this friend, so maybe
Well,
he's just
no,
incompetent.
the
He
ex-wife
stuck
isn't
it lucky once.
the ex-wife isn't incompetent. She's got arthritis of the hands and can't play piano anymore.
They kind of give it the same vibe, though, of
They
the same
do. They
personal
do.
failing.
They do, but it is very different. Like her story is
Very.
actually quite sad.
Well, that I feel for her because she can't play the art she once played,
Yeah.
and now
She's still
at
in
her
love with this
husband's birthday,
guy, and
at her husband's birthday, she watches some other woman
yes.
stare into his eyes with love, and
Yeah.
him stare back.
Yeah.
And there's a reason I use husband and not ex, because
Yes.
it's his
Still
birthday.
deeply in love with this guy, is trying so hard to be a friend. Like her story was incredibly sad, and they didn't really play it up oh no, your fucking finger's moved again. They really didn't play it up at all.
Just so that we don't forget, I want to comment on the ex-wife and his dead body when we get to that.
Okay. Because I think the ex-wife is the only person they definitely state couldn't do it.
Yeah, because of her arthritis and of how heavy it would be.
Because of her arthritis. So she is the only person on the island who is, show-wise, definitely not a suspect. Basically from second one of Jessica Fletcher getting involved. Oh, and obviously Jessica Fletcher can't be a suspect.
And it's not a good argument for the ex-wife. It's really not. Because, yes, arthritis, but also you're mad enough to murder someone. Like, for her motive, it would be money and holy shit, I hate you. You ruined my life. You divorcing
but then
bastard.
I don't know. Maybe the argument would be that if she was going to murder anyone, it would be the second wife.
I always have issues with that.
It's or not maybe both. But
when people cheat and then you attack the person. Your significant other is the one that cheated. They're the one who made the bad decision, not the person.
If the person, and especially if they don't know, which a lot of them don't. They just think this was some nice single person and you're just having a nice time with, right? But no, I mean,
even if they did know, they're not the ones who personally betrayed you.
You should still blame your significant other, but to me, it is
livid, but
it is worse when they're completely oblivious to the fact that anything wrong has happened and then they're being attacked.
Yeah,
like this. So the attempted murder, botched attempted murder, and the trying to set up of clues, which again I think was really badly done, happens. And then I believe we're finally at the scene where the helicopter turns up.
Mm-hmm.
Guy with mustache and the son are fishing?
No, it's so it's Willard Kaufman, the attempted murderer, and actually I believe it's the
was it the charity lady?
Woman.
Charity lady?
Yes, charity lady.
Okay, yeah. That makes sense. So they're fishing at the beach. So I do believe that the guy with the mustache, the guy who we find out is the one who does the attempted murder. His plan must have always been to fake a heart attack and leave on that helicopter.
Because he's already got an ampule of stuff with him to fake a heart attack.
So he was always going to escape. Right? Now, here is my problem. If it had been an actual murder, right, would they not have called the police on the radio sat phone that we don't know anything about at this stage?
The only people who are super emphatic not to because when the vase is pushed off, he plays it to his wife as if nothing happened, as if it was just an accident.
Yes.
He doesn't lead her to
just
believe
an accident,
it's attempted murder.
And they need to do some repairs to the houses. Yes.
And then when he talks to Jessica Fletcher, he explicitly says that they shouldn't report it. So if he had died, the authorities would have been called.
Right. I mean, I guess you could argue that the same thing would have happened after he did die. But my argument there is that I think somebody could have got to the radio before it was demolished by the person who does demolish the radio after the actual murder. Right?
Yeah, because you think that would have been a priority.
So this brings me back to the point, right? That if this guy, the initial guy, had actually planned to actually murder this guy, this escape plan no longer works.
Yeah, because it would have been no one leaves the island.
No one leaves the island. The police would have been here. Okay, the cops may have taken him off the island, but they would have stayed at his bedside.
It would have been, roughly speaking, in custody.
Yes.
Or yeah, it's a question.
So if he was trying to actually kill him, so my argument becomes, I don't think he ever wanted to kill the guy.
I also think I think this is again one of those instances where we're giving them way too much credit.
Maybe, but yeah, that is.
But if you're to actually bother to look at it,
this is kind of my feeling. Is that for his escape plan to work, he knows that the helicopter is going to become on this day. He clearly knows that some people are turning up later, just in time for the birthday. Well, they've been there, I'm assuming, for a few days beforehand. He has to have taken the ampule with him so he can fake the heart attack. And the plan to get on the helicopter that's already there after having a heart attack is a good one. Right? It makes sense. But it only makes sense if this helicopter is going to arrive. Because I would argue if the murder had already happened, Jessica Fletcher and Lord Ponsonby, or whatever he's called, would not have gone to the island.
Yeah, because they would have been...
Right? That helicopter would not be there. Going. Yes. Right? Because the police would have been involved.
So it's instances like this where I'm thinking, okay, maybe the director and the writers are not on the same page. Maybe the writers are actually including this much detail and the director's kind of scrapping it and butchering it with... But I don't think there was that... I think the writers and the directors were one person.
I don't know. But yes, if this guy was successful and if this was always his escape plan, his plan doesn't make sense. But the other side of the coin is we are meant to believe he is incredibly incompetent. So maybe they're just trying to build up his incompetence. I don't know. None of it is explained and it's never really given time to percolate.
No.
Right? So he then has a heart attack. Gets on the helicopter that Jessica Fletcher and is he John?
John.
Is he John? John somebody?
Something. Yes. Sir John.
They get off. Jessica Fletcher and John have been having a good time. Been getting on since Barcelona airport.
So here's my question to you. With Sir John Landry, the actual killer, something they fail to do is give any hint of surprise in his eyes to still see Diego Santana alive.
Yes. Which again...
He should be surprised.
Plays into the theory that the first attempted murder was part of the plan.
Fair.
Right? Or he's just a very good actor. And I will say, when he is confronted, and all the other times where it comes up, he is portrayed as someone who is very good at lying. So I think you could argue with John that he would have been able to hide his surprise. He's just that kind of person. But it does also play into the idea that maybe the first attempt to murder was part of the plan all along. But I have no idea.
And could he have seen him?
Could have seen him from the helicopter.
Well, and if there had been the murder, they might not have been able to fly in via plane.
Exactly.
So he knew it hadn't
we
done
do
the plan.
know there is a radio sat phone. It's possible the other guy has already phoned him to say that he failed. Like there are a number of ways, I guess, that could be done. I do want to go back because I believe there is a scene where the artist and the detective are talking about Jessica Fletcher. And I believe the detective doesn't know who she is, knows who she is by reputation, hasn't read any of her books, and calls her a wet fish.
He refers to authors that he assumes are like her as wet fish.
As wet fish.
Most murder mysteries are just pains in his ass.
Yes, which I mean, I will be honest, it took me a long time to realize that he was meant to be a detective.
Yeah.
Here on holiday. I did not get that immediately. So when he's meant to be I think you're always meant to assume he's meant to be the expert on this, and some of these dialogues when they're delivered just don't hit quite right because I feel you don't know enough about the characters already.
Is his hat supposed to give away that he was the detective?
I don't know.
Because he does have that kind of hat.
Or maybe maybe it's an attempt to try to start layer in clues before you need them. So there, then you finally have like aha moments. I don't know. I do not know. But Jessica Fletcher and John arrives. Diego takes Jessica Fletcher into no, hang on. Beforehand, they fake the heart attack. The son goes off with the guy, right?
Insistently.
What's that?
Insistently. He insists he go with the heart attack guy rather than the dad.
He insists he goes. So the son and the guy who did the attempted murder are now off the island, replaced by John and Jessica Fletcher. Diego then says to Jessica Fletcher, we need to have a talk. There's a very awkward conversation on the beach where he says, I think someone's tried to kill me. Can you look into it? I don't trust anybody. Basically, honestly, the actions this man takes don't really make a lot of sense to me. Because then he's told a story that someone's tried to kill you, and he's kind of like, oh, it's fine. We don't need to report this. It's nonsense. I don't believe you anyway.
I don't think he doesn't believe, but there is a good question as why he doesn't want the police there.
I believe there is a point where he says, I do not believe the darkness in my fellow man's heart. Or something like that.
He doesn't see the darkness in his... So basically, he couldn't see motives, was what I took that for.
Okay, maybe.
Because he does explicitly say, I saw someone up there push the vase.
He does, but then he doesn't seem to give a shit when it's explained. Now, maybe whether that's because he believes they're already off the island, because the clues are it's a left-handed smoker and there can only possibly be only one.
He's also the one who mentions the access to the island is incredibly limited.
Yes, because they set that up.
Of course, they set up that access to the island is extremely limited, but they don't show where those kids could have boarded the boat to go back home.
No,
because you would think for how many kids that would be, you would need a boat,
unless they
not a plane.
I don't know. The helicopter that comes back afterwards is apparently meant to take everybody who's on the island away, even though it's clearly only a 2/4 seater.
Good point, but they also mention the tides as it's the kids trying to leave.
They do mention the tides. They do mention the boats, and is again so much of this I think is just really really odd. Okay,
another odd thing.
Yes.
Where was the dog?
There was a dog?
Rewatching it, yeah, exactly, exactly. But when he goes off for his walk, when Diego does,
yes.
And ends up, not. There's a dog clearly with him, both when he steps out the gate, and I think it's an Irish setter, a gorgeous Irish setter.
Yeah.
And so we see that, and the dog's with him. But then when they see his body, the dog's not with him. But when we get to the scene of the fire, there's a dog barking. This is the only 2 instances in the whole episode of the dog.
In the same vein, when Jessica Fletcher and John get off the helicopter, there is a man there who collects the bags.
Where did he go?
Where is he? Where's the rest of the stuff? I didn't even
notice him. Yeah, 'cause he's a rich man on an island. He's going to have some maids and some butlers.
Setting up for a birthday party. He's going to have staff there.
Maybe that's just his friends, right? And they're all just shite.
And none of them, I think the only time you ever see any hint of staff is the guy who collects the bags from the helicopter. I don't know what happens to him afterwards.
But you're right, because everyone who's here at his party is a bit pretentious and would not be doing their own dishes or hauling their own bags. The only one who's in that kind of vibe is Jessica.
Yeah.
And maybe the inspector. Maybe. But also, why is the inspector his friend? We're not given that information
We're not
either.
given any of this information, and it is so weird. So yeah, they've sent the two off. He's asked Jessica Fletcher to investigate. I believe at this point, I still didn't know the other guy was meant to be a detective.
Yeah, not until it comes upstairs.
So not until he comes upstairs and explains it away. I think we then have a scene with the ex-wife where we learn she can't play piano anymore because of her hands.
Yes.
Because they really tried to set. I can't remember if they set anything up in that scene. I think John is involved talking to the charity person at some point. But oh, has she already been given? Is she given the picture at the first meal before the birthday,
Yes.
or does she
before Jessica gets there?
Oh, okay. So yeah, I think that's when John goes in and says congratulations on the new painting or whatever, and then offers to sell it with no commission or fee.
Yes.
Because he owns an art gallery. So this is when. So then I think we cut to Jessica Fletcher's up on the balcony investigating, finds the most obvious pedestrian clues, which I was convinced would have to be wrong for this to be any kind of mystery. Again, I don't know if this is them playing with ideas or if they're kind of playing against themselves on purpose. They kind of they try and give you this obvious stuff, so you think it's got to be wrong. So you're kind of fighting against your own mind as the plot develops.
The only other major interesting thing, just skimming back through,
Yeah.
is that Jessica
Yeah.
quickly puts the cigarettes and the matches out of sight into her pocket as the inspector comes up because she's suspicious of him.
Yes.
So even obviously she's the murder detective and all that, but why would they leave all? And they left the chisel marks. They left all the debris from that.
They may have just left a chisel and a signed photograph of them chiseling the thing away, right? It's stupid. Now, I do believe the person you were meant to suspect the most in this episode is the detective. Right? Their initial confrontation, their initial interactions are very passive-aggressive. I don't know if that's the best word, but they're definitely not friendly. Right.
So what you see is Jessica not being trustful of him.
Yes, and I don't know.
I didn't actually think it was because he was a suspect so much as them not knowing how to.
Well, no, I think
they were heavy-handed with so many things here.
I think at this stage she would have suspected everybody, and there's a later scene where she even confesses that I don't know if I can trust you, but I've got to trust somebody, right?
Yes.
And that to me was the scene when the detective was removed from the pool of suspects, because if Jessica Fletcher is actually trusting him, she's always right. And there's no way they're going to say that she was wrong in her trust and her leap of faith, right? But until then, the fact that the detective is always there and the fact that he is always questioning what she is saying was kind of interesting.
To me, that was just heavy-handed of him trying to be a detective and also recognize he's on the list of suspects to someone who is... Though then again, why would he respect her? Because
he does not respect her at the beginning.
Well, and respect her inquisitiveness and investigative ability.
I don't think he does at the beginning. I think he is upset that he hasn't been asked to do it, but clearly he's here to investigate. But the other thing that came across to me is that, okay, and again, I wasn't sure he was a detective when he first came out, right? So the first thing I'm thinking of, why is he out on that balcony harassing Jessica Fletcher? Right? When it's revealed that he's the detective, you can kind of understand that he's probably also suspicious of this quote unquote accident.
Right.
Right. And is going to investigate as well. But it was the antagonism between these two and the fact that everybody else, they were trying so heavy-handedly, be it story-wise or just with weird camera shots, to make them a suspect. Like the only time they tried to make the charity person a suspect, I think it's at the end of the scene when they've had this conversation. Because I think there's an argument that we see between the husband and the sculptor, where the husband has found out the sculptor's been after his wife. So you set the sculptor up as a potential suspect. And then I believe...
I like the line of my hospitality does not extend to my wife.
Yes. And then I believe at the end of the conversation between Jessica Fletcher and the detective, there's this weird angle where you find out that the charity lady has been listening in the whole time.
You did get an angle off the balcony between two banisters of the charity woman looking up. I'm not
Yes.
convinced she heard everything, but at a bare minimum, it felt like a scene trying to make her
Definitely
more of
trying to
a
make her a
culprit.
suspect. And then I don't believe they pushed her again.
Never again.
Right. So then I think there is a couple of conversations between the detective again, and then maybe something to do with the wife. Or maybe it's when they talk to him about, we think someone tried to push it off. There's only one left-handed guy. And that's when he goes, I don't believe the evil. So then I believe we're actually at the birthday meal proper. And they very subtly set up that the murder weapon might be a crossbow. I don't know if you caught it.
Oh my God. Look, my son, he's a crossbow master.
Like, oh my God. Well, we all know what's happening tomorrow. Someone's being shot with a crossbow. Like, I know there is like a written rule in filmmaking that if you show somebody with a gun, they better bloody well shoot it. But this was ridiculous. This is the most.
You did miss a tiny scene where they call to the mainland to see the status of the heart attack victim and the son.
Oh,
and then
that's
they
right.
established
Yes.
that the son's disappeared.
The son's disappeared, but the guy looks like he did have a heart attack. So we now think he's in the clear. Because at this
But
point,
Jessica still seems suspicious at that point.
Because Jessica Fletcher hasn't put it together that maybe the heart attack was faked. Well, hasn't found her evidence anyway.
Right.
So we set up the crossbow. I believe this is also when they do the ex-wife is still in love with the husband and is finding it very difficult scene.
Mm-hmm.
Do they set anything up major here? I believe the detective and Jessica Fletcher also have another little conversation, but I can't remember what it's about.
I don't remember either.
Oh,
the next conversation so when the investigator pulls away, it's discussion on finances of Kaufman, and I think some on Landry, but mostly Kaufman, the heart attack guy.
Oh, okay. So is there anything? I think she has a conversation with John, which is very not illuminating. Charity lady is feels for the ex-wife. Blah 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 blah. We see someone take the crossbow.
With Jessica talking to John Landry, it is conversations again about his money and what paintings he owns.
Okay.
And whether or not Kaufman has them or not. And then to feed into the conversation that obviously happens completely off screen between everyone who's not the murderer. Did that catch you too? The way it was just everyone.
We'll get to that. That was one of the stupidest scenes I thought I'd seen. So yeah, crossbow stolen. So is it when he's walking on the beach? You say you first see the dog?
No, when he first leaves in the morning after the crossbow's taken. So we're talking seconds later.
Yeah. I didn't even notice the dog.
Like it's a gorgeous Irish setter.
Yeah,
though, isn't
it? There's the dog, and Jessica Fletcher just happens to be going for a walk somewhere. I can't remember where.
She's always going for a walk. So
she's always going for walks.
It works for her.
And because she sees a boat has landed on the beach, right? Which is important.
No. Is it my quality of the DVDs that I have, or is it just hard to tell that's a boat in that scene?
Hang on, to me
it almost just looked like a rock. I got it in the long term.
It's quite hard to tell that it's a boat. I believe she does also say that it's a boat, though.
Very shortly after.
Yes, to make it clear. But no, I can understand why you would think that was a rock, or an octopus, or something just on the beach.
I wasn't sure what it was.
I can completely understand that. Then we see gloved hands on the crossbow. Do they show us at this point, interestingly, that it's fired by someone who is right-handed?
No. We do actually get that impression from the way the camera shot lines up the crossbow, because it is over the right
dog.
shoulder.
There's the dog again. He goes for a walk. There's the dog.
That's the last you'll see the dog.
Jessica Fletcher is suspicious of something. I don't know what. Sorry, I'm watching the crossbow scene as we talk about it.
But watching back through this whole scene,
yeah,
it feels like it's all happening at the same time,
I think it
but I'm also
is.
I'm not convinced it is, though. Something just feels off about the timing and pacing of Jessica interacting with everyone she does, or with Jessica's side of this story, and with the side of the actual murder. It actually feels to me like
Yes.
the murder happened maybe 30 minutes earlier, and they're just, I don't know,
I don't know if it's
something
meant to
about
be
the
that
pacing
much
of
in it.
this.
I think you're right, because we're introduced to a gloved figure using the crossbow, and I don't think we see the shot. And then I believe in the next scene is the detective, also wearing gloves, walking down the
Hmm.
stairs and seeing Jessica Fletcher. And you're meant to believe it's in the same area,
Yeah.
right? I
I,
don't
I
think it is necessarily in the same area.
I had the vibe by the time he was with the gloves that it just didn't feel at the same time. Whether or not that
Yes.
was accurate to what they intended, to me
I
it
don't know.
felt
Maybe this was the
separated in
scene
time.
when they were trying to convince you the detective isn't the person who did it.
Maybe.
Because, yeah, he shouts to
Yeah, because
Henry. Henry looks like he's been hiding in a bush. But then I think that maybe we don't actually ever see the shot, and it's just the body is found afterwards.
the body with Theo, yes. Well, and that's part of the
Okay.
reason it feels incongruous is because he looks to be shot directly in the spine, not in the lungs.
Yeah.
You would expect to scream out with anything other than a lung or throat shot. It's some, I
No,
don't know.
so I think you are meant to think this is at the same time. And I think the thing that they're trying to throw you off is that I don't think Jessica Fletcher and the detective are in the same place. Right? What I think you're meant to take from the scene, and I may be completely wrong, is she shouts up because she thinks there's somebody hiding in a bush up a flight of stairs. Right? And who comes out is the detective wearing gloves.
Right.
Right? I think you're meant to think he did it. Right? We haven't seen the shot, but then in the very next scene, the shot has been taken. And yes, I think it's interesting, this kind of idea. That I think you're right. I think they are trying to do this scene to confuse you a little bit. But I think where we're differing is where they're trying to confuse you. Are they trying to make the detective seem incredibly innocent? Or are they trying to make the detective seem incredibly guilty?
Right. Well, and we do finally get with the next scene, the sculptor standing up there with the crossbow without any
Yes.
gloves on.
That
So
was
that also
that was
it felt
weird.
weird.
That was weird.
That's part of the reason I felt like it wasn't that compounded my already existing feeling that
Yes.
these two events weren't
But
actually at
again,
the same
I
time.
don't know if it's not meant to be same time. I mean, they hear the woman scream, so they have to be fairly close. But yes, no, I get that maybe the
Yeah.
murder, the shot had happened a lot earlier,
So we're
because
never
the dog's
given the
definitely
reason
gone.
why the
Oh,
charity woman
do you?
is there at the scene.
Well, you've just
I
been
did
walking along the beach. Do you see the convenient door
that they put him on?
that they put him on?
I didn't actually notice it on the beach.
As he's lying on the beach, just on the side of the hill, there's a convenient door.
That's good.
I hadn't spotted that until I was just watching it now.
So actually, if you look at when looking down the cliff at his dead body and them rushing to him, is the
Yes.
dog actually just beyond him there, as behind the detective, as the detective gets out of the way, a little brown patch on the ground,
And let
on
me
the
have a look.
sand?
So she's screaming. There's a bush
We're
up
at the very
there.
end of that scene,
She's
just
screaming,
before we pan to the sculptor. Like seconds before, a
running
second before
in.
panning to the sculptor.
There's a log. The dog is now by the body. Yes. Yes.
What were they doing with the dog?
I don't know. I don't know. And then, yes, the sculptor finds the crossbow. He's got no gloves on, but it's all very suspicious.
I actually wasn't convinced it was this. Like, this scene with the sculptor made me think it actually wasn't him, just because how weird it was.
It definitely
He
made
seemed
me think it wasn't him for a number of reasons. With, one, he's standing at the crossbow, and there's no way they're going to make it that obvious.
right. Yeah, that too.
The fact that he wasn't wearing gloves also, to me, was kind of like he probably didn't do this. But it did raise the question of, why doesn't he take the crossbow? Why doesn't he run
Yeah.
down to them, or at least tell them where he found the crossbow? And in fact, that's even compounded later on when John says they need to find the crossbow and he volunteers to go look for it. even though he
Yeah.
clearly knows where it already is. Right.
I forgot about that bit.
So again, I think all of the red herrings are so heavy-handed, right? And it was the heavy-handedness of the red herrings that led me to know who the murderer was very quickly.
And this is where either you're smarter than I am or you understand these shows more than I do.
So
No, I'm not done. I want to dial back to his death.
Yeah.
They bring him in.
Yes. On the door that was already
And
on the beach, conveniently.
Jessica keeps the ex-wife from staying in the room with him.
Yes.
And lets the new wife up.
Yes.
What the fuck?
And there's the staff member again. I forgot he brought the body in. But he was never a culprit. He was never a suspect.
He had nothing to gain from him being dead.
Does she actually ever go up into the room, or does she keep her down the stairs?
Jessica keeps her down the stairs.
Yeah.
Why? This is the woman he made his life with to some extent.
I don't know.
Wife, yes, he loves her, but it's not the same.
I don't know if it's about. I would say it's probably about propriety. That's probably. I don't think that's the right word. But being proper, which is that the person who should be up there first is the wife.
The guy is dead. I don't care about property. It's like when people are always super nice about a dead person who is a piece of shit.
Yeah,
I don't care about propriety at that point. Fuck off.
And then it's broken to the to the new wife. Staff member walks out with the door. They've clearly taken the bolt out of his back. Which is never shown.
I think you mean tampered with evidence.
Well, that's basically what I was getting at. And then, so what is also interesting, I think, in the scene is you've got John, who we later find out is the murderer, no gloves. And you've got the detective who takes his gloves off. Again, I'm convinced they were trying to convince you the detective was the murderer. There are so many subtle clues, I think, where they're trying to convince you that it was him.
I think I actually just started to write off the gloves, considering the gloves and lack of actual tact and capacitance with the attempted murderer, and now the gloves with the actual murderer, and now we're seeing a crossbow still just sitting on the ground because
it didn't make sense.
The murderer just leaves the murder weapon.
And of course, the other part is, which I thought was interesting, and again, maybe you're meant to try and think that there was always two people involved in this conspiracy. Well, there were always meant to be two attempts. Is the detective is wearing black gloves, which definitely fit with the gloves that we see with the urn.
Mm-hmm.
I believe the crossbow shot, they're brown gloves. Not a detail I would have noticed on just one watch. Right? But again, I don't know if this is Murder, She Wrote trying to get cleverer and trying to put in these subtle clues that you can pick up on, which get you to the solution before Jessica Fletcher walks you down the road. Or if I'm just
need to work on it.
Or if I'm just thinking too much about it. So then I honestly can't remember what happens. There's a load of conversations.
You are right. Those are brown gloves. I did not catch that.
There's still a crossbow on the wall, but I'm assuming that's a different crossbow.
That's not the crossbow.
It's not the crossbow. It's a different crossbow.
Yeah, because they still have to go looking for it. Because it's the one missing on the wall they care about, not the...
They've already discovered the radio is broken, I believe, at this stage.
I thought that... Did that feel like a weird social commentary with the Belarusian national?
So, and again, I don't know if that was again meant to be a red herring. Because the person who comes in and tells you the radio has been smashed is John.
Yeah.
And as far as I'm concerned, he is the one most likely to have smashed the radio.
I can see the...
The other one makes sense when it's explained.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to think because the sculptor is in the bedroom. They come down the stairs. John is the only one who goes off to the radio room. The sculptor comes into the room with everybody else. But he does come back incredibly quickly to say that he smashed it. So I guess the implication is that the sculptor sees the crossbow, sees the murder, runs to the house, smashes the radio before he does anything else.
Why would he? I'd say why would he bother doing that? But if he wants to try and escape the island,
it does make sense that he would smash the radio.
Yeah, but why not just smash the radio and leave right then and there?
I don't know. That's the thing. So I don't know if we're meant to try and think that maybe it was John who smashed the radio or broke the radio. I also don't know if anyone ever goes and checks the radio, so maybe John was just lying.
I think, given the following morning, and then they turn the helicopter away to get the police that way. No, the radio did get smashed.
And then I
don't think anyone else checks it, at least. So
no, I don't think anybody else checks it. And then I think it's the sculptor and John who head off to try and find the crossbow.
Yes.
They're all aware there's been a murder. They're all aware one of them's got to be the murderer. And then I think this is also the scene where Jessica Fletcher does that. I don't know if I can trust you, but I got to say this to someone.
Yeah, I think so. Because then yes, it absolutely is that scene.
Yeah.
I don't trust you, but I have to trust
Because this is
someone,
when she
and you're
points
the
out the
only
fact that there is a boat, and this is where they find the son trying to run away on the boat.
Also, why isn't the son at least a little bit more upset that his dad's dead?
I don't know if the son knows that his dad is dead at this stage.
They tell him, and I feel like he should be more upset.
Yeah.
Because when he's trying to leave on the boat, he only knows that he's stealing the paintings. He doesn't even know his dad's dead.
What I loved about the scene where the detective runs in, because the guy is trying to escape on the boat, he overturns the boat, the son, and then the detective runs in to get the son, and Jessica Fletcher does what I can only describe as the most camp run into the water to get the package.
Okay, so what's funny is because that was such a bad run on Jessica's part, because it just seems so peculiar, the Wikipedia notes, it draws so much attention to her. It draws so much attention that watchers of the episode noticed that Jessica was already wet up to her waist. All her clothes were properly wet when she was running in for the first time. AKA, this was the second time they've done this scene.
Oh my God, they're right. Yes, I hadn't noticed that. But yes, they are 100% right. Oh, that is amazing. So we're then presented, the son is obviously the most likely suspect, right? He has snuck back onto the island. He has stolen some paintings, and it is very likely that he probably killed his father.
I was never convinced it was the son.
Well, because they've also set up that he was the whiz with the crossbow, right?
Yes.
So if anybody could hit him with the crossbow, it was going to be him. So I think, again, they're trying to very heavy-handedly say it was him, right?
But he truly had no motive.
I agree. He truly had no motive, and I think his response to it and the arguments he makes are fine.
Yes.
John, I think,
he does have a valid reason to hide it and still not want his father dead.
Yes. And then I believe during that same scene, John walks in with the crossbow, not gloved. So again, if it does go to the police and it goes for fingerprinting, the fact his fingerprints are on it is because he found it.
Which is also convenient for the fact that the inspector takes it with gloves, if I remember correctly.
It's either with gloves or with a handkerchief, but he does take it in a way that it would preserve fingerprint evidence. Yes.
Right.
Which I thought was a nice touch.
Yes.
So there's then an argument, and this is where I knew it was John. It was this scene, because he is the only one who tries to argue that it could be anyone. And he does it every time.
From this point forward, John spends the entire rest of it at every opportunity he can accusing someone else. And I will say that sticks out like a sore thumb.
So that is when I was like, okay, it's John.
Who actually punches first? Is it John? Yeah. John's an asshole because he actually hits the kid as well.
John punches first, and then the wife holds the son back for some reason.
I do like Jessica's Zen garden in the next scene.
So what I liked about this is because again, she's had a theory that the heart attack was faked, and I believe she's already told the detective that she has this theory.
Yes.
She's now doing
She mentions anal nitrate could do it.
She's now doing some proper detective work, right? She knows where the guy was. She knows where he fell. And what I love about the scene is the large area she's had to rake before she finds what she's looking for.
Yes.
Right?
She's diligent. She's determined.
Yes. Whereas so often with these things, it would have been the first place she looked. Right? Okay, they didn't show her raking the entire area because that would have been boring to watch. But I love the fact that they'd set it up that she'd been there clearly for some time to try and prove her theory.
Even if Angela didn't scrape that, they make it very clear that Jessica did.
Yes.
Jessica put in the work.
Yes.
Jessica cared.
And then she finds the thing while John is there. This is one of the few times where I thought maybe I was convinced it was John, but I was thinking maybe it's the detective. Because it's mainly because of some of the sneering looks he gives. But I think that may just be his face.
I think that's his face.
I think that might just be his face.
I thought he was coming to like Jessica at this point in time, that she was determined.
I couldn't tell with that face, because I couldn't tell with that face whether that's evidence that he didn't want her to find, so he's disappointed that she's found it. Or if he is starting to think, okay, she is not just a wet fish like he was convinced she was going to be.
I have a feeling he started to accept that she's not a wet fish by the time she's seeing the cigarettes and the matches and specifically knowing the importance of the hand.
Yeah.
That maybe, like, it's not guaranteed she's more than just a wet fish, but there's a real chance that she's got more going on upstairs than that.
Yes. I believe it then goes from that beach scene to we're told that the sculptor has disappeared. John does come down at the beach, but I can't remember what he says.
Also, the little capsule that's supposed to be the anal nitrate.
Yes.
What the hell was that?
I don't know. I don't know.
Like, that's what they tell us it was, but
yes. She found something. We're told what it was. And that's fine, I guess.
Did it? So I was willing to accept it was what they said it was from the moment she said it was that. Mm-hmm. But when then she goes to sniff it to verify what it was, I'm just thinking that's been on the beach through tides from the fucking Mediterranean, not even the ocean, the Mediterranean, which is super salty.
That is one of the other arguments, which is, would she actually have ever found that?
Also, yes.
Given the tides.
Even if
you do find rubbish, tides do bring things back up and down. As someone who lives on a tidal island, I'm well aware of this. But
I thought you were in France.
France also has tidal shores.
Disagree.
But yeah, I preferred it more as the fact that she was doing proper detective work and determined to prove or disprove her theory about the fake heart attack, which I liked. And then I think we basically see John now in every scene at some point. So we find out that the sculptor has gone. I believe we also find out that the sculptor keeps a small boat behind his shed or something like that. And it's shown to us that has also gone. And I believe John, well, that's it. He clearly did it. Blah, 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 blah. Don't need to look into this anymore.
Yeah, accusing anyone besides himself.
So then this is where John proves himself to be an idiot, although he does try to play it off. And again, I think this proves that John is an idiot anyway, especially as someone who's meant to be in the art world. Because he's also found out, I can't remember when the conversation happens, but they found out that there's a shit ton of new paintings in a shed behind the house.
Where was that scene where they find that out?
I'm
trying to skim through.
I honestly can't. That must have been when they were confronting the son. It must have been then.
Had to be.
Because they were all in the room at the time, so it must have been then. We know, obviously, that it's John who did this. He then sets fire to that shed.
So why do you think that was stupid?
I'll tell you why it was stupid. So he already knows that any painting by any artist who is suddenly dead shoots up in value.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They do not, just because there's more paintings, does not devalue the ones that already exist. That's not how that works. Especially the one that is considered his masterpiece, which is the Golden Madonna or whatever they call it, which we know he already has.
I'll give you, it doesn't devalue the Gold Madonna.
Right?
I think I'm going to disagree because finite wealth and to me, it seemed like he had done enough in the last year to add somewhere between 50% to 100%.
I think that is the question. Like, you know, they say he's been busy like over the past year. We're never really given an idea of how many he painted. But
enough to burn the room down.
If John had been clever, and he would have had time in that shed, nobody suspected him, nobody would have watched him, he would have stolen the paintings.
Then he would have paintings that didn't, or that.
Right?
What's the word?
Yeah. Or he could have just hidden them somewhere else on the island. Because one of the things that does improve the value of a painting is when you find one years after the artist has died.
That's true, but what's the thing when it comes to art or archaeology where having a trail of its entire history? Yes, if he stole them, they wouldn't have provenance.
But how do you prove that he stole them? He was a friend of the artist. Why wouldn't he have had them?
Why would he have never displayed them until after his death? And also, the family would have some concept
he put them
about
in the attic.
His new art.
That is true, because again, well, we're never told this. Like, okay, we know he's been working, and we know the wife and the son. I think the son also knows that the paintings are there.
Yeah,
I'm assuming it's the new paintings that the son has stolen as well, which is something I didn't.
That's a good question.
I didn't, because I'm assuming he's been into the shed stealing your paintings. So yes, I guess you could argue that if the family, the wife and the new wife and the son have seen his work, then you could argue that stealing them is a bad idea. But
well, also,
all in all, setting fire to the shed was a bad idea. You've already tried to convince them that it's the sculptor. You've already tried to convince them that the sculptor has already run away, right? You then not only set fire to the paintings, but you tried to burn the second wife alive. I don't know why she was in the shed. Was she in there looking at the art? I honestly don't know why she was there. I don't know if it's ever said.
Heard the barking and the fire.
But
she went out because things were already happening.
So, I mean, where John was at that stage, then I don't know. But, you know, he knocks her unconscious and leaves her to die, grabs her from behind. We do know that because that's how we find out it was a right-handed person.
Yeah, again, with the handedness, that seems weak.
Great detective work. So, yeah, tries to kill the wife in a fire and destroy the art. Stupid idea. Has tried to pin it on the sculptor guy who we think has already run, and then has to change his story to say, well, clearly the sculptor hadn't gone, but he'd moved his boat somewhere else and was hiding to then come back and burn the paintings for some reason, which makes no fucking sense.
Why would he wait that long to set fire? Why not set fire to it while everyone was away and preoccupied?
Precisely, yeah.
And then sail away.
Yeah. And then you would think someone like him, who doesn't have any paintings, would actually take one to sell.
Yeah.
Right? If he's going to be on the run, he's going to need cash.
Like, John needs them to have provenance. But the son trying to give them to the girlfriend to get her out of jail, they don't have to have provenance to have significant value.
But the other thing with John is that he would easily be able to, as owner of what I'm assuming is meant to be a respected gallery, he would be able to make the provenance.
Only after killing the son and the wife?
Maybe he has to wait. Maybe he has to wait till they die. I don't know. He's the person in the art world.
Good point. I will say, though, the other potential difficulty of styles. Artists do, to some extent, evolve and change throughout time.
Yes.
And you would expect all the new ones to have a different style to them.
Yes.
Which would further lend credence to it being difficult for him to steal them without essentially knowing it was done at the end of his life.
Yes.
And taking them. But the concept of hiding them away and then maybe finding them later.
I agree, hiding them. But I honestly believe the destroying them was also a short-sighted plan. I honestly do not believe more artwork by this guy. You're meant to think he's a great, right?
Yeah.
He's died, so you know there's not going to be any more. coming out. So you've already got your finite stock.
And you already have
You've already got his
mystique of the
masterwork.
dead guy.
Yes, you've already got his masterwork, which is the Golden Madonna. So yeah, I think setting fire was just, I don't know, maybe it was another way of trying to convince you that it was him. Maybe it's just to give the right-handed evidence, is to have a reason for him to have attacked the second wife, because at this stage you have no evidence connecting John to this.
I will say, you do have a good argument, though, on if he was, because he could have stolen them to hide them somewhere on the property.
Yes.
And to get them later.
Yeah.
That still would have offered this opportunity for the interaction.
Yes. Yeah. So I don't really understand the point of the fight, other than to give evidence, and then John spins another tale. Because he's convinced.
It also offers quite a bit of drama.
It does. He's convinced he knows what's happened. Actually, this might be the scene where Jessica Fletcher takes the detective into his confidence, or just the one where the detective is like, "Oh, you know who it is, don't you?"
Yeah, she does do that. John is the second person here, though, in his, or well, third, because we've got Jessica, we've got the investigator, and then John Landry, Sir Murderous John Landry.
Yeah,
he's the second one to the scene.
Of the fire.
Yes, but he doesn't go in to help. I will say, I did actually. A million comments can be made about the child actors. I actually thought the second wife's acting post-fire was quite good. I actually thought she nailed that pretty well.
Yeah, so did I. I honestly thought the detective running into the fire did quite well. I didn't notice the fact that it was the staff who run to put the fire out. So the staff are always there, but they were never suspects. But not even mentioned. Like just absolutely nothing. Like they were just ignored, apart from when they had to be there to do something, which I guess maybe is how rich people treat staff. I don't know.
Against the law for staff to be left-handed.
Oh dear.
Or right-handed.
Or right-handed, yeah. So then, yeah, you have the argument. You have the wonderful detective work about it was somebody who was right-handed, not left-handed.
Oh, bad.
And then, so I'm going to say, Jessica Fletcher has then worked it out.
Okay, no, we're dialing back. So the way Jessica determines that the person who choked out the second wife is right-handed is by doing a mock choking.
Yes.
And she does it first with her left hand and then the right. And it's, no, that's wrong. Yes, that's right.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Jessica's too short for this potential chokeout to feel quite the same. And also, you wouldn't just the left hand, when she did it with the left hand, she would be like, wait, no, that's not, it was from the right.
Yes.
She wouldn't even have to wait for the right hand to go around to say, oh, it was actually from the right. But
well, I don't know, maybe it's like when you go to the optician and they do the number one, number two, you're not sure until you've seen both.
Then in that same vein, 1 and 2 are so much shorter than the actual person that choked her out that I still think there would be that disconnect.
Oh, I completely disagree. And it's a very weak argument. I mean, what if someone who was left-handed just happened to grab her from the right?
Also that, but also I would think that the person's height would be super relevant, because you're not going to choke someone at an unnatural height. It's going to be you're going to do literal instinct when trying to choke someone out from behind.
Yes.
So the angle of your arm around them is going to matter.
Yes.
And that's what I would think would be what you could use as the best evidence for who it was, is, hey, who matches this height? The height of because she might remember like the angle of what sections of her neck got covered and which did. Because also the way Jessica holds her wouldn't knock a fucking anyone out. Let me put my arm around you.
And then, see, then we have the little bit where her and the detective talk, and the detective is like, you know who did it, don't you? And it's clearly the things. This is one of the other scenes where I wasn't sure if they were trying to make the detective seem sinister, because he comes in from the dark. The fact that he's covered, like, because he stays back for a while. Right? is kind of
I thought it was
dismissive
supposed to
to
be that
Jessica
he's
Fletcher.
fighting the fire. Was what
Yeah,
I was assumed he was doing.
but is very dismissive, yawns as Jessica Fletcher is talking, right? He's meant to be tired.
So he asks her why she hasn't gone to bed when he hasn't gone to bed, and near as I can tell from the scene, no one else has
no
gone
one
to
else
bed.
has gone to bed. But this is the other thing. The fact that he's asking Jessica is kind of like, it kind of gives the idea of, are you still thinking about what's gone wrong? Because I don't want you to, because I did it. That's not what happened. But I'm still not convinced they weren't trying to convince you as the detective right to the last.
I was long since part of what I enjoyed about this episode was the interactions between Jessica and the detective, because he did seem wanting to push back on her,
Yes.
but also willing to acknowledge when she was doing right. So I was never sold really.
So did I, and I thought the growth of their relationship was very nice. I enjoyed the interactions and how they kind of grew, how it went from completely dismissive to a little bit we're confidants now to actually, Fletcher, you're way above me in the detective work.
At that point, I didn't think he respected her, but I thought he was more intrigued by her as a person at that point.
Yes.
It was a bit overly heavily-handed with the flirting at the very end, but I also respected it.
The end. Yes, the end. But then this tiny helicopter turns up.
Keep doing.
This tiny helicopter turns up to take 7 people. And then, so I've often said about the reveal and when people confess and how I don't understand why they confess.
Mm-hmm.
This definitely fits into that.
Which portion of it?
Pretty much all of it. Jessica Fletcher has got nothing. Absolutely nothing. Now, I know that the detective runs after the helicopter, and we later find out that he has basically told the story to the police and said, go and talk to, is he Willard, the guy who's in the hospital after the heart attack? Right?
Willard Kaufman.
So that makes sense, and that would give you the evidence to go after John. Right? But at this stage, I don't know why John would confess to this bunch of people.
Okay, so he's literally surrounded.
I do like the fact that he fights them for a long time.
Yes.
He doesn't give in straight away.
No. And they keep popping up out of the fucking woodwork.
Oh, the fact that the people keep on popping up. But the main bit of evidence she gives really is that he has said at one point that he's got the Golden Madonna in his gallery.
Mm-hmm.
We are also told that Willard is the one who brought the Golden Madonna, is assumed to own it. Right?
Right.
And he has also said that he hasn't seen Willard since April when they were at some kind of race. I think it was Epsom. Some kind of horse race. But then also says, oh no, I brought it from him 2 weeks ago.
Yes.
That ain't standing up. That ain't standing up in a court of law.
As an accusation, God, no.
Right? And that really is the main evidence. But then he fucking confesses. Oh,
He's
yeah, my gallery wasn't doing well. So you see, I had to kill him.
He's surrounded by other people who all are absolutely convinced it's him, who have been literally showing up in the most intimidating way possible. And he's told that his co-conspirator, absolutely
the co-conspirator thing, that was the only line that made me believe this, right? Is that you have the co-conspirator is clearly going to give you
the co-conspirator tells me that he's guilty. The other circumstances give me why he confesses to this group, because they're already pushing at him from all sides, and he already knows he's going down. Because he doesn't admit to it until he's told about the co-conspirator.
He doesn't admit to it until the end, yes.
And then now he's surrounded by everyone, and he already knows his goose is cooked.
How much was this?
He's prideful.
Obviously, as part of Murder, She Wrote, it was rehearsed, right? Imagine for a second that this was real life. How long do you think this group of people would have had to spend rehearsing this charade?
Oh, yeah. but in real life, if you're John Landry, honestly, that's kind of fucking terrifying.
Oh, it is. It is kind of terrifying, but I don't know if I would talk to anyone. I probably would just run to the helicopter.
He's told the helicopter's not there yet, isn't he?
No, he's seen the helicopter. He knows it's there. I don't know if the
Oh,
detective
that's right.
sends
That's
it
right.
away. I just assumed he used it for the radio.
No, he did see the helicopter on the beach. That's right.
But he saw the helicopter. He knows it's there.
Get while the getting's good.
But even with all of this, yes, okay. So the line where the detective says, "I've already talked to, I've used the helicopter radio, and the police are talking to what's his face."
They're going to. They haven't actually talked to him. It's impending.
Yes, because then I think the son comes in and delivers the final blow. But again, like, if this was real life, just how they must have been up since like 6 o'clock in the morning rehearsing this little skit.
They never went to bed. Do you remember? He tells her to go ahead and go to bed, and she already knows who it is. So they start working this out.
They must have been, and then they must just break to have a shower and change out of their smoky clothes. And they're like, "Yep, let's do it. Let's do it."
Yeah, you forget. They had to have one more break for cocaine to be this awake and ready for the interrogation.
But it was as the final reveal interrogation, it was much like the rest of the episode. It was so heavy-handed and stupid.
Okay.
Right?
Heavy-handed, yes, but I enjoyed it.
Oh, I also enjoyed it, but it is definitely stupid. And then his reasons for doing it are the most stupid and selfish reasons I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Right? I know he's in financial trouble, right? But he does already have the paintings. They do already have some value.
The only thing you can give at this point is that he's also just a self-absorbed sociopath.
Clearly he's a self-absorbed sociopath, yes.
And the problem is, well, actually the episode does lend some credence to that with his absolute willingness to try and blame and destroy the life of anyone and everyone else.
100%. Yeah, he's
trying to get away with this.
He's going to blame this on anyone, and obviously he was hoping to do it via proxy with the first guy, right?
And he does know how to be profoundly charming because Jessica was eating out of his hand when they first got there.
I do like as the confession is going on, because he's always showing himself as kind of like a fan of Jessica Fletcher. And then there's a line when the confession is going on, it's just like one of your awful books.
Yeah.
The turn. Yeah. Oh, he's evil. He doesn't like Jessica Fletcher's books.
Okay. Wait. That turn.
Yes.
Not the tone the guy used, because the tone wasn't quite far enough, but the immediate turn to "I've always hated you and I always will."
Yes.
Really feels like when any of, at least in the first term, of Trump's peoples that he appointed, greatest person ever, you were horrible and I hate you.
Musk. Elon Musk. Elon Musk. But yes. But overall, I enjoyed this episode.
I did too.
Right? I do believe everything they tried to do was incredibly heavy-handed. Right? Every other suspect they tried to set up, I don't think really worked. The side story of the sculptor, I mean, it didn't need to be there at all. It didn't really add anything to it apart from another red herring. Right? The sculptor's probably in the show for about a total of 1.5 minutes screen time.
I think it's actually a touch more than that, but not by much.
Right.
The sculptor, the thing I liked was just his leave and why he wasn't relevant was, hey, look, this. But the origin of him wasn't interesting. I just find his motive for leaving and why he left and what I did find that novel, curious.
It was interesting, but at no point in my mind had they given him anywhere near enough room to be a viable suspect.
His was the only one that wasn't a motive of money. It would have been a motive of love.
It would have been a motive of love, right? And so the only other one I feel they give the ex-wife enough reason, enough motive, but you clearly discount her, and everyone discounts her very early on, right? And then they
give her motive, but they don't actually give her agency.
No, the charity woman, again, the only time I feel they tried to give her any kind of that she is a suspect is that weird shot from the balcony very early on.
Me.
You know, which is like, I don't know what this shot is about. She's overheard. Does that really matter?
The sole thing I took from that shot was that they were trying to imply that she could be the one, and I did not
Right.
buy a penny
And then
of it.
they never touched on her again.
Nope.
Right. The son was probably the most viable suspect, but again, he is brought in and taken out of contention within about a minute.
Yeah.
Like, they grab him from the boat, they bring him into the house, and then he explains everything, and you no longer believe it's him. Right? There is no
His
slow burn.
explanations are good.
The only
They're
slow burn,
worthwhile.
and apparently it was one you didn't even think was there, and I must have been reading into it. The only slow burn to me was the detective.
Yeah, I never bought the detective.
Nor did
I think the
I.
only one I wasn't actually sold on the innocence of might have actually been the ex-wife.
The ex-wife would have been interesting because they tried to take her out of contention so quickly. So then trying to explain it afterwards that it actually was her would have been an interesting move.
The only other thing is they made such a talk about how inaccessible the island is,
Yes.
and then we rapidly get multiple instances of people coming and going.
Yes.
From the island.
Yes, the son turns up on a boat. The sculptor's got his own boat.
And the sculptor leaves and comes back, sets all everything on
leaves
fire, and
comes
then
back.
leaves again.
You know, everyone's got boats. Dave's got 8 helicopters. We just didn't tell you about them. But no, I did like. I loved the fact they broke the golden rule, which is they killed a good guy.
Yes.
I don't know if they'll ever do it again, but I'm glad that they are kind of. You know, we've been picking up on these rules, and I'm glad they're still willing to break them. I did like the fact that they were trying to set up multiple suspects, but I think they did it incredibly poorly.
Very.
And then I actually think the evidence that they use, apart from the we're going to flip your co-conspirator on you, the evidence they actually used on John is, I don't even know if you could call it circumstantial. I don't even know if you would really call it evidence.
The only evidence they have on John is that he's not left-handed and therefore couldn't have been there.
He's not left-handed, and he lied about why he had the Golden Madonna.
And even more so, we're still I could know the guy was guilty and still vote innocent if the only thing you have is that he pulled matches from one side of the fucking matchbook.
Or I knew he was right-handed because I hugged the woman afterwards. Right, yes. And this is what I mean. The evidence they provide, apart from the detective coming in, I phoned the police on the mainland and I've told them to talk to this guy. This is what we believe happened. See if you can break him. Right? And I believe the other guy would break. Sorry?
Why did we both like this one then?
Because I think the story... I think because even though it was done heavy-handedly, it did actually flow together quite nicely. In its own weird way. I liked the antagonism between Jessica Fletcher and the detective. I liked the fact that she didn't straight away knew who was innocent and who was guilty. Right?
Yeah,
there wasn't somebody who she was there who she was to protect, because she was in theory friends with all of them / none of them.
Right.
Or you could argue the person she was actually a friend with has been murdered. Right? So again, it's playing with the formula. I thought the people, even though everything was heavy-handed, I thought the actors involved did their parts quite well. You know, I believed the detective was a grumpy, snarky British detective once I knew what he was meant to be. I believed Sir John was an absolutely up himself posh bastard. And I thought the ex-wife, I definitely believed that she was having trouble both with the arthritis and the fact she still loved him. And I thought the second wife did very well as the not trophy wife, but that's, you know, probably what you call them these days. And yeah, I think the interactions between everybody was good. I just think the story and the way it was delivered at the end of the day just wasn't strong enough. If that makes sense.
Oh yeah, no, I mean we have similar complaints, and we both similarly enjoyed.
But I think
certain
what this
aspects.
does show, like I think this episode showed a lot of potential.
Yeah,
Like some of the ones we've watched have just been god awful. Right? No potential. I want to scratch my eyes out and never want to watch another episode. Some of them have been okay and good with a few flaws. I think this one has probably been the most flawed episode we've watched. But I think part of that is that, well, if they can just iron out some of these deficiencies, they may be coming up with a good formula.
Question.
Yes.
How Jessica Fletcher is Angela Lansbury in this episode? What we've thought of as her archetype perfection. Because we, on one side, get her putting in all the work necessary to prove that it wasn't a heart attack and
Yes.
that was justified.
Yes.
We get her immediately going upstairs to try and check out the pushed vase scene to see what's going on, and then fairly assume that he's left-handed. I don't think that it's nearly enough that it's left-handed, but at least she goes up there. But then we also have her super weak, absolutely left-handed because of this, and the reaching around the neck.
But again, this is where I think that this, when I come about the weak evidence, even for Jessica Fletcher. But I think one of the things is, and one of the things that Jessica Fletcher does is, we definitely get the impression that she knows. Right? She knows it's John. She's worked it out. She's put in a bit of legwork. And I think the other thing is that she also knows that she can't prove that it's John, but they have to break the other guy. But the other guy's not there, so Jessica Fletcher cannot be there to break the other guy. Right? So I think in a more modern version of this, Jessica Fletcher would probably be, you'd probably have a scene at the hospital later on where she's breaking the other guy. Because if you explain it to him, I can understand why he would break.
Yeah.
100%. I think Jessica Fletcher's got enough. She knows. She can convince this guy that she knows. And you also get the idea, give her a bit more time, she can probably find some evidence. Right?
Yeah.
But I think the fact that she was willing, like she didn't even, like you said, she didn't even question the left-handedness of the matches. Right? That was the evidence. She didn't even suspect that somebody would have faked that, which seemed very not like Jessica Fletcher. Right? Same with the smoking, the fact that the cigarettes were there. The fact that it's been chipped away, that was fine. It had to be chipped away so it could move. But the fact that the cigarettes are on top, so you know that he's been there after that's all happened, or during, blah, 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 that was all too convenient, right? And she never questioned it. The fact that she accepts that the second wife knows that it was a right-handed man who choked her by that terrible cuddling her from behind scene, right? She accepts it. But I think part of that is that what Jessica Fletcher is about? Once she knows, does she actually need very little to push forward and try and get a confession? Because this isn't the
only
first
other thing
time.
she has is conversations.
Conversations and things that don't make sense. Like the whole thing with the Golden Madonna, and he's contradicted himself, right? He has talked himself into a hole, which is fine, but it's a very easy hole to dig yourself out of.
I'm going to actually give a point against Jessica. She should have mentioned, because we as the audience noticed that he was fighting against every other accusation.
Yes.
She should have mentioned that in the thou doth protest too much.
But
for his accusation.
I don't know. I don't know if this is going to the thing. You know, and again, Jessica Fletcher does not have to prove these murders to the extent that the police force does. Right? She is not pushing for the conviction. She is just pushing for the truth. Right? Or most of the time, because it's normally one of her nieces or nephews, she's doing it to prove the innocence of somebody else. Right? So it makes me wonder if this is always going to happen. The fact that she would, you know, will they ever do an episode where she is so convinced of something, but she turns out to be wrong?
I think we've got seasons until they're willing to break that.
Because that would be a good episode. right? But no, I don't know, because like I say, by the time she pushes for the confession, okay, I understand why she has to push for the confession when she does, because he's about to get in a helicopter and fly off.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I think he is the wrong person to push for the confession for. I think you push the guy in hospital. I don't think
I think this makes a better climax to the episode, though, from the writing point of
And
view.
then I don't know where this island is meant to be, and I don't know where the hospital is meant to be. I'm assuming maybe they need to make sure he confesses so he can be arrested by the same police force and he doesn't skip to a different country before they can catch him. Maybe that's why they do it.
It's Mediterranean, so there is a lot of different directions to go.
And then, the other thing, that very heavy-handed, but, the scene with everybody just coming out from the different corners and doors, waiting for their cue before they go in and give their little bit of a stabbing to say, we know you did it, John, you bastard. But then the other thing, none of them seem upset that John murdered their friend, apart from maybe the wife. They all deliver their lines incredibly matter-of-factly.
A sad thing is what they could have done to make this episode culmination really good was to ensure and let the audience know that actually when these people were kids, they were all theater kids. And they liked this drama.
Honestly, I think they should have just done the scene when they're all just around the table writing the script for this. I honestly think that I know he did it, but we've got to catch him. And I know how we're going to do it. I got a plan, gang.
But
this whole, we're all coming out to corner you out of nowhere, but we know our lines and we know exactly when Jessica Fletcher wants us to come in. It's just so stupid.
I knew it. I knew how stupid it was. I loved it.
Oh, I loved it. I loved it.
The unnecessary drama.
I absolutely loved it as well, but it's so stupid.
Actually, part of the reason it does work is because they did dial it up to 11. They took it.
Yeah.
As stupid as it was, and because part of the greatest thing about doing a stupid thing is you've got to commit to the bit, and they fucking committed.
Yes. But I wish they would take that commitment to more of the things they try and do. And
yes.
I'm kind of hoping that, I think the last episode, it's been too long since we watched it, but I think the last episode was also pretty good. Oh no, wait, was it the one on the cruise?
It was the cruise.
Was that a good episode? I know it had its stupid moments.
It had some really serious plot holes.
Yeah, but I mean, they all seem to have really serious plot holes.
Yeah, but that one annoyed us with how wide the plot holes were.
But we've definitely seen worse episodes of Murder, She Wrote than this one.
Yes,
like 100%. So I'm hoping, and again, they're taking risks. They're trying a different approach. I'm hoping they keep that up. I'm hoping. Again,
what they were doing wasn't working.
Again, the fact that it was the friend who was murdered and she wasn't trying to prove the innocence of somebody else, it's a subtle change, but it's a change, right? There are no police involved. Okay, they give her the detective so she can have somebody to talk about and explain the clues to, which I think is very important. And again,
they also don't make it the all-powerful detective police officer that she has to rat everything through.
Exactly. And if they bring that detective back for another episode, I very much doubt they will. I wouldn't mind. I would love to see them solve a case together.
He's done. One and done.
But definitely had problems. I think the problems definitely get highlighted the more times you watch the episode. Honestly.
You only watch it once.
But I think that's probably true of all of these. But yeah, for some reason, I enjoyed this episode. Even though we've moaned about it for about 2 hours.
It was a fun story, though, at least to some extent.
It
had intriguing characters.
It was a fun story. I thought it was well acted.
Yes.
It was different enough from kind of what they'd established. My nephew has got a girlfriend who's doing something, and then they somehow get involved in the murder. Like, we're only 15 episodes in, and I think they've done that about 13 times. I'm glad they're having different openings to these things. Even
I
if
don't think it's been 13, but I think it has been over 50% by enough of emotion to be a real problem.
Yes. You know, so I'm kind of glad of that. I'm also kind of glad that they're having people like the fact the detective didn't really know who Jessica Fletcher was. I thought was just refreshing.
Yes.
Because in most of the others, they've all been great big fans of Jessica Fletcher.
Or they've heard of her and they have no
to some
patience
degree or
for her.
another. But I love the fact that I love the fact that the detective didn't know who she was. I love the fact that he was dismissive. And I love the fact that his respect for her grew as he finds out that she is actually, she's clearly a deep thinker when it comes to these kind of things. And she's willing to put in the legwork.
Yes.
You know, I liked that. And the flirty response at the end was maybe a little bit much, but I like the fact that it's shown at the end that they are now friends.
Yes.
They're probably the most friends of all the friends in this Friends episode.
One thing they did wrong in this that they've done wrong before that I hope they don't fix, because at this rate it's just kind of funny, is the kid actors.
Yes.
It's the horrible, incompetent child
the horrible kid acting was good in this one again.
I don't even blame the kids at this point. Just don't. This is on the director.
I just loved on this one just how awkward it was. Just how she's clearly stopped. There's no reason for her to have stopped. There's no reason for her not to be in the group that's slightly further forward. But she has stopped because she's been told there's going to be an interaction.
And like it would be different if she was super endeared to him as a kid, but she would have stopped and moved towards him as I don't want to lose
she just stops because she's been told she has to stop. But she clearly doesn't know why she's stopping. She doesn't know how to time the stop. But what I love the most is they've recorded this. They've seen how awkward that is. And they were like, yep, done. We don't need to redo that. That's the best. Like, did they do it more than once? Are there worse takes of that interaction on the cutting room floor? Or did they just do it once and think, fuck it, we can't afford to do it again?
Now, if there were more than one cut, I now want a super cut of all of the worst child actor cuts from the show.
How could that one get worse? Like, oh my God. Like, I can understand, like, because I think with the other ones, it's been line deliveries.
Yes.
Right? And yes, they've been getting, I feel child actors now are probably much better than child actors were back then, but they've got the worst people to do line deliveries as child actors that I can remember. It's almost as bad. So there was an advert when I was growing up for, I think it was Bold. It's for a washing detergent, right? And basically the idea is that this guy has left his sandwiches in his pockets, put his clothes in the wash, and so his clothes have been stained, right? And he does this awful delivery of my sandwiches, right? It's fucking awful. But I've remembered it for so long because it made me laugh every fucking time.
Okay. You ask what could be worse about the scene? It's the scene where they gave her lines. And even they thought it was
I wonder if they did. And this is the scene where like, do you know what, love? Just stand there. Just stand there until he pats you on the head and then you can fuck off. Can you do that? Can you do that for me, Stacey? Can you do that?
You sound like John fucking Oliver. You gave 110% John Oliver, and I love it.
Oh man! But anyway, that was episode 15. An episode we both enjoyed.
How long has this one already been?
We're at 2 hours. We're at 2 hours.
Oh fuck!
An episode we apparently really liked, but have moaned about it constantly for 2 hours.
I would watch this one again. We bitched about it, and I would watch this again for amusement.
Oh, but yes, we should probably wrap it up there. If anyone has made it this far, thank you.
If you've made it this far, please remember, wrap it up and spay and neuter your dogs.
But not your cats?
Bob Barker didn't care as much about cats, I don't think. And if you don't know who Bob Barker is,
I know who Bob Barker was, but I thought he said pets, honestly. Maybe he did say dogs.
Oh. Well, yeah, but then we'd have to include the kids, because kids are... about as problematic as most. I mean, it's like with this girl and the.
Okay, if we're talking about you have to give a kid an acting challenge. No,
And if
no,
they fail
no.
it, you
This is
play
going
her
down.
neuter.
This is going to get down a very dark, very dark. I feel like this is how a certain Adolf may have come up with his policies. Let's not go down this road. Let's not go down this road. That's not what we're doing. Kids are fine, even if they can't act. Kids are great.
No, kids are little bastards, all of them, and that's
Oh
okay.
dear. But yes, thank you for sticking with this one. I hope you enjoyed. And hopefully we'll be back soon with episode 16, which probably also has a title, one would imagine.
We'll see you next time on Dragon Ball Z. That's it. I'm done.
We're gonna
I'm not saying anything else.
You just did. We're gonna get sued.